The skin binder. The house wasn't supposed to have an attic, but during a storm the ceiling buckled, revealing a square outline of wood, swollen with age, as if something above had been waiting for the right moment to be found. I pulled the ladder down, and a smell drifted through the opening, damp leather mixed with copper. It's warm and unsettling, like the inside of an animal hide left in the sun. The attic was larger than the footprint of the house, stretching into a darkness that seemed to breathe, inhaling cold air, exhaling something humid and wrong. My flashlight beam caught shapes on the wall-thin sheets, hanging from rusted hooks. Each one translucent, each one rippling as if stirred by a breeze I couldn't feel. I stepped closer and realized the sheets weren't cloth, they were skin. Human skin, tattooed, mended, pressed flat like pages in a grotesque archive. A table sat in the center of the attic, covered in tools made of bone and darkened metal, their edges sharp enough to split hair or memory. Beside the tools lay a journal bound in something that looked disturbingly familiar, its texture soft. Grain unique, pores too human to deny. I opened the journal, and the first page writhed beneath my fingers, ink crawling like insects trapped beneath parchment, forming words that felt like they were being carved into me as I read them. "The binder takes what you shed," it wrote, letters pulsing, date, "and he keeps what still remembers." The attic creaked behind me, slow and deliberate, like someone enormous shifted their weight in the rafters, patient and attentive. I turned the page, though the journal resisted, sticking to my fingers as if reluctant to give up its next confession. A crude drawing filled the page, a man stitched together from pieces of different people, seams crossing his body like a map of failed escapes. Under it, he collects skin that carries trauma. Pain preserves the memory. A rustle came from the far corner, and something stepped into the edge of the flashlight beam, a tall figure draped in patchwork skin. Each panel a different shade, different age, different life. T's face was hidden behind a mask made from another face, stretched meticulously, the eyes vacant holes staring without seeing. He didn't walk. He glided, the seams on his legs tightening and relaxing like tendons fighting to remember how they were supposed to move. My flashlight flickered violently as he reached the table, fingertips dragging across the tools with reverence. Each metallic tap echoing like a clock, counting down. He lifted a thin sheet of skin from a hook, and it quivered, reacting to his touch as if still connected to nerves, still capable of fear. The binder pressed the sheet to his chest, holding it there gently, almost lovingly, whispering to it in a voice that sounded like dozens of voices sewn together. I backed toward the ladder, but the attic shifted with me, floorboards bending subtly, pulling me deeper rather than letting me retreat. The binder turned, the mask tightening as if smiling. A T whispered my name through those empty eye holes, voice soft enough to feel rather than hear. "You brought so much with you," he said, each syllable stitched from sorrow. "Your scars, they remember everything." He gestured to the hanging skins, and they rustled like leaves caught in a cold wind. Reacting to me, recognizing me, remembering me. I felt something crawl across my back's maul, sharp prickles moving beneath my shirt like 100 tiny hooks tugging from inside my spine. The binder stepped close enough for me to smell him old blood, dried tears, smoked bone end. He traced a finger along my arm, leaving a cold burning sensation. Where he touched, my skin puckered outward, peeling itself delicately, willingly, eager to join the others. I stumbled away, but a loose sheet of skin drifted down from above, brushing my face, and the second it touched me I heard screaming its memories, its final moments, its agony leaking into my mind. I clawed it off, but more sheets dropped like feathers, covering me, clinging with desperate need, each one whispering its story into my skull. My flashlight shattered, plunging the attic into darkness where the binder's stitched body glowed faintly, the seams pulsing like veins feeding him memories. He whispered gently, "The more you suffer, the more of you there is to keep." I collapsed as my skin tightened painfully, pulling away from muscle as if trying to answer some ancient call. The binder's shadow loomed over me, and he lifted one of his bone tools, delicate, precise, ceremonial. He didn't rush. He wasn't cruel. He was an artist. He'd waited a long time for new material. The last thing I felt was the attic breathing in, savoring me. And the last thing I heard was the binder whispering with quiet satisfaction, "You will hang beautifully." The hunger room. I bought the house because the previous owner vanished mid-renovation, leaving tools on the floor and dinner still on the stove, like he'd stepped out for a breath and never returned. The real estate agent warned me the basement was unfinished, but the air around the door felt colder, as if the house wanted me to leave it sealed. I didn't go down there the first week. Every night, though, something scraped softly beneath the floorboards, like fingernails tracing the blueprint of the house. When I finally opened the basement door, the smell hit me first, rotted wood mixed with something sweet and wrong, like spoiled fruit masking something much worse. The stairs seemed older than the house itself, sagging under my weight, groaning like they remembered everyone who'd walked down them and never walked back up. Halfway down, the light bulb flickered, and I thought I saw a shadow dart across the bottom steps, something crouched low, too small to be human. The basement walls were covered in wallpaper, but the pattern moved subtly, blooming and contracting like bruised skin trying to heal itself. Svesk, in the far corner, plastic sheeting covered a section of wall the previous owner must have been working on, Svesk's fluttering as if something behind it was breathing. I pulled the sheet aside and found a second wall, older, covered in carvings, names, dates, telemarks, etched by desperate, shaking hands. One name appeared over and over, Evelyn, followed by fresh tallies that didn't look like they belonged to the man who vanished. They looked carved yesterday. Right as I leaned closer, something brushed the back of my neck, cold, deliberate, the touch of someone who wanted me to keep looking. I spun around, but nothing stood behind me, only a thin line of disturbed dust curving around my feet, like something had circled me. When I pressed my ear to the carved wall, I heard faint breathing on the other side, wet, uneven, almost childlike in rhythm. My stomach twisted, instinct screaming at me to get out, but something deeper whispered that the house had already chosen me and wouldn't let me leave empty-handed. I knocked lightly on the wall, and the breathing stopped, then grew louder, closer, as if someone pressed their face right against the other side. A soft voice whispered my name. Not my full name, just the nickname my mother used when I was small, a name no one else alive should know. The wall bulged outward, the wooden planks flexing like ribs beneath a heavy inhale, something stretching forward to meet me. I stepped back, but the house seemed to hold me in place, my legs heavy, rooted like I'd become part of the foundation. The wooden planks split, revealing a thin crack of darkness that smelled like earth and old bones, the scent of something starving. A small hand slid through the crack, gray, thin, nailed fingers tapping the floor eagerly, like it thought it recognized me. I stumbled back and hit the workbench, sending old tools clattering. One rusted chisel spinning dangerously close to the hand on the floor. The hand recoiled, then another appeared. Then a third, too many for one person, niche, searching blindly, hungrily, scraping the foundations for warmth. Whispers poured from the opening in a dozen overlapping voices, all calling the same name, Evelyn, pleading, begging, bargaining. But then the voices shifted, merging into one, deeper and more aware, repeating my name slowly, savoring each syllable like a taste. It knew I'd come. It had been waiting. Didn't want Evelyn anymore. Wanted someone newer, someone alive, someone who could feed the room again. The crack widened with a long, splintering snap, and something pressed against Eton's emaciated face, with hollow sockets and teeth worn down from chewing wood. T's jaw unhinged wider than a human's should, tendons snapping like wet string as it forced itself closer, inhaling me with animal desperation. I climbed the stairs, but the steps bowed inward like the house was swallowing me, the wood bending toward the basement instead of supporting my escape. Something grabbed my ankle cold, bony fingers dragging me down, nails digging through skin, pulling with frantic need. Ta kicked free, skin tearing, and crawled up the stairs on shaking hands while the house groaned, furious at losing its new meal. When I burst into the kitchen, the basement door slammed shut on its own, the sound echoing like a coffin ceiling. I shoved a chair under the doorknob, but the wood kept vibrating, something pounding from the other side with starving impatience. I fled the house that night, but sometimes, when the wind dies and the world goes quiet, I still hear the faint tapping under my feet. The house was demolished last month, but the construction crew faced strange delays. They found a hollow chamber beneath the foundation, and they found tally marks carved into the walls. Fresh ones. The last tally wasn't Evelyn. It was my name. The Clockmaker of Blackridge Street. I moved into the row house on Blackridge Street because it was cheap and had character. Hey, but I didn't know the character came in the form of every clock in the neighborhood stopping at exactly the same time. The first night, I noticed the silence. Not ordinary quiet, but the kind of void that made my own heartbeat sound like a hammer striking a coffin lid. In the living room, an old grandfather clock loomed, taller than me, its face tarnished, hands frozen at 2:47. I went to touch it, tell, and the air around me shivered like the building itself exhaled sharply, warning me to step back. The next morning, I noticed small scratches circling the wood of the clock, thin lines carved in perfect symmetry, almost like counting marks. By nightfall, every clock in the house had synchronized to the grandfather's frozen time, to ticks, stopping and starting together with unnatural precision, disappearing beneath the floorboards, low and urgent, speaking numbers in a language I couldn't fully understand. Curiosity drew me to the basement, where the walls were lined with clocks. Hundreds of them, all faces smudged, hands twitching as though trying to point at something unseen. A small figure crouched among them, impossibly thin, skin pale and translucent, fingers moving with clockmaker's precision across the gears and springs. When it saw me, it tilted its head, revealing a face carved with faint lines like the etchings on the clock faces. Every mark a date, a memory, or a death. It whispered my name, but stretched, warped, wrong like the sound had been squeezed through decades of hours and minutes. I tried to retreat, but the basement door slammed shut, and all the clocks began ticking in a low, synchronized pulse, vibrating through my chest. Each tick echoed like a hammer in my ribcage. Each talk whispered fragments of memories that weren't my nights I hadn't lived, faces I had never seen. I saw the figure work feverishly, inserting small gears into my watch, then into my phone, then into my wrist, all while murmuring numbers only I could understand. When I tried to speak, my voice came out in reverse, words folding into themselves like twisted springs inside a broken mechanism. The clocks began to chime, dozens of overlapping melodies, some joyful, some mournful, all discordant, creating a song that rattled my bones. I realized the figure wasn't making time, it was collecting it, hoarding it, consuming the seconds and minutes of anyone who lived nearby. My own heartbeat fell out of rhythm with reality, slowing, speeding, pausing, like the figure was testing the elasticity of my body against the clock's ticking. I grabbed a hammer and smashed the nearest clock, expecting silence, but the sound only amplified, spoken gears singing in metallic agony. The figure smiled o'er. I thought it didn't. The etchings on its face pulsed, showing my birthday, my mother's birthday, and a date, years in the future, I couldn't place. The walls warped with the ticking, bending like molten wax, corridors lengthening and shrinking with each chime. I tried to run, but the basement staircase spiraled impossibly, each step a countdown towards something inevitable. The figure's voice whispered in gears and springs, "Time is mine. Your seconds belong here. Your minutes feed the clocks." A trapdoor opened beneath me, revealing an endless pit of clocks stacked in spirals, hands spinning wildly, faces screaming silently. I fell, and the pit swallowed me with cold precision, the ticking pressing against my ears like a drumbeat of inevitability. When I hit the bottom, I wasn't hurt, only suspended in darkness, each tick of the clocks inside me sinking with every nerve and bone. The figure appeared above, stretching impossibly tall, one hand resting on a pendulum that swung from ceiling to floor, measuring my captivity. It whispered, "I make seconds last. I make minutes scream. I harvest hours, and you are the newest hour." I tried to scream, but the sound came out in clockwork clicks, translating panic into mechanical rhythm. I'm still here, suspended in the pit. The clocks around me spinning time into threads that twist through my body, marking me, cataloging me, claiming me. Every night in my dreams, I hear the ticking of Blackridge Street. The street's frozen at 2:47, and the figures whisper in every second that passes. Time no longer belongs to me. It belongs to the Clockmaker. And one day, he will wind me into the world again. The Pale Archivist. I first saw the Archivist symbol burned into the wood of a collapsed farmhouse, an open mouth, with no tongues just before winter buried the valley in silence. Locals whispered that the Archivist didn't collect objects or books. He collected moments that were too dark for history to keep. I didn't believe any of it until I found the cellar door half buried under rotten beams and frostbitten grass. The air beneath it breathing like something alive. Inside, the stone walls were carved with dates, thousands of them stretching back centuries, each paired with a single trembling phrase. Some phrases begged for forgiveness, others begged for death. One simply read, "He took my yesterday." A staircase spiraled down farther than the foundation should have allowed, texture wrong, like someone had folded depth itself into smaller layers. At the bottom, candles burned without melting, flames bending sideways, as if trying to crawl away from the darkness behind me. A man stood in the center of the chamber, back turned, spine too long, his shoulders twitching with tiny frantic motions like insects under his skin. He didn't turn when he spoke. "Most people come here to forget. You came to remember." His voice sounded older than the dates carved in the walls. It's older than the valley itself, brittle like something preserved in formaldehyde. I asked him what this place was, but he only motioned toward a wooden table stacked with small glass vials filled with swirling gray mist. The vials vibrated like something inside them wanted out, the fog pulsing with memory fragments, laughter, screaming, whispers, and something else beneath it. "History edits itself," he said. "I archive the pieces it cuts away. It's the truths that ruin men." He handed me a vial with my name etched into the glass, though I'd never been here before and had never told him who I was. The tane mist inside twisted violently the moment I touched it, forming flashes of a room I'd never seen but somehow recognized from nightmares. A metal bed, leather straps, single hanging light swinging over a child who looked exactly like me, terrified, gagged, begging without sound. I tried to drop the vial, but my fingers wouldn't open. The archivist smiled, as if my panic was the final proof he needed. "That's your first forgotten day," he whispered. "Ta, you were given to a place that doesn't officially exist. Ta, they returned you emptied." My chest tightened as the memory forced itself into me, filling the hollow space I'd never realized was hollow until now. The archivist reached to a shelf and retrieved a second vial, this one shaking so hard it clicked against his fingers. "Your mother traded this one," he said. "A memory too damaging for her to carry, so she sold it." I stepped back, but the chamber stretched with me, swallowing distance, pulling me deeper instead of letting me escape. "You think your life began where you remember it," he murmured. "But half your story sits on my shelves." I tried running for the stairs, but the steps dissolved into shadow, the chamber reforming into a narrow hallway lined with more vials. Each one whispered my name. Each one showed glimpses of things I should have remembered but couldn't survive recalling. The archivist appeared beside me, his face stretched thin, his eyes pale like polished bone. "Take one," he said. "Anyone. Know your truth." I grabbed a random vial, hoping it would be small, harmless, forgettable, but the moment I touched it, it screamed loud enough to rupture the silence. Images slammed into me, masked men, cold instruments, a door marked with the same tongueless mouth symbol scorched into that farmhouse. My legs buckled. My breath vanished. The archivist steadied me with a skeletal hand that felt warm, almost tender. "Pain is a compass," he whispered. "Let it guide you back to the rooms they erased." The chamber darkened, the candles winking out one by one until only the vial in my shaking hand lit the hallway. I heard more whispers, now hundreds of voices inside the walls, begging me not to open anything else, begging me to stay forgetful. But the archivist leaned close, his breath cold enough to frost my vision. "You want the truth?" he said. "You always have." Before I could refuse, he uncorked the vial for me. The mist exploded outward, filling my lungs, my skull, my marrow, dragging me backward into a memory so violent the room shook. I saw the facility, the doors, the experiments, the night they took me. The night they returned me, different. The night I lost my voice for months. When I collapsed, the archivist caught me gently, like a parent lowering a sleeping child. "There are hundreds more," he said. I tried to scream, but only a breathless whisper came out, thin, fragile, barely mine. That's when he leaned in and said the words that shattered me. "You've spent your whole life trying to escape what happened, but you keep coming back here every winter. You just never remember." The vials rattled behind him, vibrating with hunger, knowing I was their owner returning home. The archivist smiled too wide, too knowing, too familiar. "You're not here to reclaim your history," he said softly. "You're here so I can finish archiving you."